we will start chapter 4, where we will be talking about the Deborah, the judge, and we probably won't finish it because it's a long story and we start a little bit late. But as you can see, the major narrative highlights of chapter 4 talk about Deborah, the prophet and judge, who's the only female judge in the book. She serves as both legal authority and a prophetic figure. We'll be talking about Barak and the battle where Israel is oppressed by Yavin, who's a king of Hatzor, who's commanded by Sisera, and Deborah orders Barak to gather forces at Mount Tabor. We'll be looking at the battle at the Kishon River and look at the geography there and talk about Sisera's iron chariots that become ineffective in that river, this muddy area. Geography and weather likely play a role, and it's probably happened around this time where it was like raining and muddy, and then we'll talk about Yael and Sisera, because Sisera flees after his defeat, and he's killed unexpectedly by Yael, a non-Israelite woman, by a woman who's not Israelite in her tent, in the most unexpected, surprising way. And we're going to be reinforcing the theme that victory comes through unlikely agents. We're going to see that theme happening again and again. So last week we talked about Deborah, the judge, the wife of Lapidot, who was a prophet. She led Israel at the time. She used to sit under the palm of Deborah between Ramah and Bethel in the hill country of Ephraim, and the Israelites would come to her for decisions. So from here, we understand that many of the judges, had that role of making decisions like a judge today, and not just be army generals like we've seen until now. But here's Bethel, and here's Ramah. And this is like where Jerusalem is. So you have Jerusalem, Ramah, and Bethel. Today, this is Route 60 that goes through Judea and Samaria. And she was here, but the war happened more up here, on this area here, Mount Gilboa, etc. So she had to travel quite a while over there. So she summoned Barak, son of Abinoam of Kedesh in Naphtali, which is this area up here in the north part. Kedesh is here. So this war is happening all over the north part of Israel. And she commanded, and she said to him, the Eternal, the God of Israel, has commanded, go march up to Mount Tabor and take with you 10,000 men of Naphtali and Zvulun. So he has to go. There's no regular army, unlike other nations that had a very well-trained army with chariots, right? Iron chariots and horses, which means they train, and the Israelites are just living their agricultural life. They're not necessarily getting for war. It's not like today that we have an army that assures the survival of the state of Israel and is able to set their, fighter jet planes to Iran all over the world. This is more like, calling you, everyone that can, everyone's in the right age, everyone who's fit, come to war, come help. So he's got to go through a whole recruitment process of, I guess, what you would do today with reserves, right? And she says, and I will draw Sisera's Yabin's army commander, with his chariots and his troops, toward you up to the Vadi Kishon, and I will deliver him into your hands. Okay, so this is very interesting. God, probably through Deborah, is going to somehow draw Sisera, who's the commander of the army of Yabin. And if you remember last week, we said Sisera is probably a Philistine commander. Okay, that's where he comes from. Um, and um, and he's really the one who's mentioned here the most in this story. So it looks like he's in command. The Philistines are starting to enter the area. This is the first time we're hearing of that, and they're starting to take command of the area. So so I'm going to deliver him into your hands. He's going to come with his chariots and troops towards the Vadi of Kishon. So this is kind of like her plan. Okay. This is the Vadi of Kishon. This is Kedesh, where where the tribe, where Barak, the general that she called was. Okay. And this, I mean, we don't even see the area of where Deborah is, which is further south, which I showed you before. And here's a more zoom in. You see the Sea of Galilee here. Okay. This is Mount Tabor, where this is kind of like going to happen. They're going to come through here. Okay. Then they're going to go into this whole muddy area of the river of Kishon. But Barak said to her, if you will go with me, I will go. If not, I will not go. This is a very, very surprising answer coming from a man to a woman, someone who's a warrior, who's supposed to be a general, an army general. Like she calls you and she's like, prepare for war, have this whole war plan laid out. Okay, God is like endorsing it, and I'm going to deliver, Sisera and his army and his chariot, iron chariots. You're going to just win this war. It's such an easy thing to do. And he's like, well, I'm not really sure I want to go. I'm not really sure I want to do this. I'm kind of like scared. If you, the woman prophet, will come with me, I'll go. I'll be brave. I'll do it. If you're not coming, I'm not doing this. Can you like imagine like this scene happening, playing out? It's extremely unheard of, and very, it's kind of like, in a way, makes sense. He's like, why am I going to risk myself and 10,000 men fighting the army of Sisera, the strongest army in the region, trained army with iron chariots? Okay, everyone kind of like heard of Sisera coming with the Philistines, and like, I was like, no, I don't want to do this. Also, Israel is oppressed by this nation right now. So they don't want to, they don't, he wants to keep the status quo. Like, we're okay like this. We don't want to go to war. So he's very concerned. He's a realist. Maybe he's a politician. Maybe he's a general. He's like a realist. And he's like, let's not go to war. Let's just keep things as they are. But it really shows that he's not trusting God. Okay, he's not trusting Deborah, who's a prophet, who's sent by God. And it's alarming in that sense. But yeah, someone who's talking from a very realistic point of view, yeah, it doesn't make sense to fight such a strong army, but it also shows his lack of faith.
It's just kind of a continuation of what happened in Judges, and that they kind of defy God's word. They don't listen. It just is this continuation
Yeah.
of not listening, which, I mean, it's just part of it. whole problem with judges in general.
That's a very good point. This lack of faith, lack of confidence is probably what brought this, so that's a good point you're making, Larry. What does Deborah say? Very well, I will go with you, she answered. Okay, you know what? I'll be your babysitter. I'll hold your hand. However, this is sort of like the caveat in this whole deal. There will be no glory for you in the course you are taking, for then God will deliver Sisera into the hands of a woman. So Deborah went with Barak to Kedesh. So he's like, okay, but just so you understand, you're kind of like humiliating yourself because you're allowing now a woman to be with you and empower you. So all your manly kind of like energy, which is what drives wars, right? It's like you're such a I don't want to use any not wuss, yeah, okay. You said it, Steve. Okay, so because of that, Sisera will not be delivered into your hands. He'll be delivered. So that's an insult. I guess he's willing to take that. He didn't say no, I'll be fine on my own. He still wants her to hold his hand. Maybe is she referring to herself? We know not. We know that Sisera is going to be handed over to Yael, but we're only going to see how humiliating this is going to be for Barak as well. So here we have a situation where all the men in this story are going to kind of like not be the heroes, even the Israelite men and the Philistines or the Sisera's soldiers, whoever they are. So Deborah went with Barak to Kedesh. Barak then mustered Zevulun and Naphtali at Kedesh. 10,000 men marched up after him, and Deborah also went up with him. This is also very unique that a woman is joining a war. So we see how great she was, and I can only imagine that the men seeing her there were empowered. It was like, wow, we have Deborah, the judge, the famous Deborah, who's judging people all day long, and she's a prophet, and she hears God's words, so that empowers them. It almost reminds us maybe of, do you remember in the Middle Ages, Jeanne d'Arc, right?
So it also reminds me of the Israeli premier.
Chana Senesh.
Golda Meir.
Golda Meir, right. I mean, she wasn't a warrior, but yeah.
She was a symbol.
She was a strong woman and she inspired people, yeah. So now Heber, the Kenite, had separated from the other Canaanites, descendants of Chovav, father-in-law of Moses, and had pitched his tent at Elon Bazanim, which is near Kedesh. So here we have an interesting fact, which later on will play an important role because Yael, who's going to kill Sisera, is from this tribe of the Canaanites. Okay, so all the way up here in Kedesh, okay, a descendant of Jethro, okay, Moses's father-in-law, who's called here Chovav, which means the person who likes other people, which is kind of like he likes the Jewish people, so he joined the Jewish people, the Israelites, and he's a father-in-law in Moses, and they had different tribes, and one of the tribes were the Canaanites, which is really attached themselves to the people of Israel. So Sisera was informed that Barak, son of Avinoam, had gone up to Mount Tabor. So now starts the decoy plan. So Sisera ordered all his chariots, 900 iron chariots, and all the troops he had to move from Charoshet Goim to the Vadi Kishon. Okay, so we understand what's happening here from Mount Tabor, here or here. Okay, they're pulling them over here from Charoshet Goim, is this area here. Okay, they're pulling them towards Mount Tabor. They're going to come down on them, force them into the river here, the Kishon River. Okay, and then he's going to flee back. He's going to kind of like flee back here. Then Deborah said to Barak, "Up, this is the day on which God will deliver Sisera into your hands. God is marching before you." Barak charged down Mount Tabor, followed by the 10,000 men, and God threw Sisera and all his chariots and army into a panic before the onslaught of Barak. Sisera leaped from his chariot and fled on foot. Okay, so it's like a war that they're winning in just a few hours. Unbelievable how successful this war is to the Israelites. As Barak pursued the chariots and the soldiers as far as Charoshet Goim, all of Sisera's soldiers fell by the sword. Not one was left. Sisera, meanwhile, had fled on foot to the tent of Yael, wife of Heber the Canaanite, for there was friendship between King Yavin of Chatzor and the family of Heber the Canaanite. Okay, so there's like dual loyalty, which is not really clear between the Canaanites. Because they're sitting on the border, okay? They're here, so they're next to Yavin, king of Chatzor, okay, which is right here. And this is Chatzor, and this is Kedesh. This is where they are, and it's they're neighbors. They're not Israelites, or they could be with the Israelites, or they could be with them. So some of them have a pact with Chatzor, the enemy, and some of them have a pact with the Israelites. Not really clear who's who, but he feels safe enough, and he's fleeing. He doesn't have a lot of options. He's on the run. So he goes there, and he runs to her tent. Maybe he knows her, maybe not, maybe he's panicking, maybe people are pursuing him, so he's really worried. Yael came out to greet Sisera and said to him, "Come in, my lord, come in here. Do not be afraid." So everyone describes her as a beautiful woman, very nice and friendly. And here she's just so welcoming. She's seeing like he's running and fleeing, and he's tired and thirsty. So she's welcoming him in such a beautiful way. So he entered her tent, and she covered him with a blanket. So here we have a parallel story to Barak. Barak needs a woman to babysit him and walk with him in the hand. He's an army general. And here we have a parallel story with Sisera, okay, who also needs like a woman to kind of like, you're a general of the army, like you need like, you're fleeing, you're like, go and fight the enemy. What are you fleeing like this? Behaving like in a cowardly way. So she's relaxing him, she's covering him with a blanket, and he said to her, "Please let me have some water. I'm thirsty." This is the general. You'd think he would have maybe other army around them helping him, giving him some water. What does? She opened the skin of milk and gave him some to drink, and she covered him again. Okay, now she relaxes him and gives him milk. When you drink a lot of milk, what happens to you?
Tired.
Right? You remember those days? You would get some milk to fall asleep, like have a glass of milk and go to sleep, right? Not anymore, right? Today we don't do that. Milk is like supposed to be not healthy, but that's how we grew up. And he said to her, "Stand at the entrance of the tent. If anybody comes and asks you if there's anybody else here, say no." So she's like, he's tired. He's tired from a war that probably has been going on for a day or two, or maybe even more. He's running and running away. This is a very long trip going up and down here. The mountains, up and down. He's losing. He's going to go to sleep. So he's like asking her, "You watch outside, and if anyone comes chasing me, tell them there's no one here." So he's asleep now, probably. Then Yael, wife of Heber, took a tent pin and grasped the mallet When he was fast asleep from exhaustion, she approached him stealthily and drove the pin through his temple till it went down to the ground. Thus, he died. That's what happened to you when someone puts a pin through your temple. Okay?
It's not a little pin, it's a.
It's a text pin. It's a stake. Yeah, exactly. Now Barak appeared in pursuit of Sisera. Yael went out to greet him and said, "Come, I will show you the man you're looking for." She knew this whole thing. This was not any accident. She probably knew Sisera from somehow before. Maybe went around in the tents. He felt like this is his home. And he would say hello to beautiful Yael. And she, that's how she kind of like tricked him to get in. He went inside with her, and then Sisera was lying dead with the pin in his temple. On that day, God subdued King Yavin of Canaan before the Israelites. The hand of the Israelites bore harder and harder on King Yavin of Canaan until they destroyed King Yavin of Canaan. Okay, so this is like how the story unfolds. Barak, who's in pursuit of Sisera, he really wants to get him. He wants to get him for two reasons. First of all, you want to get the general of the army, right? Like Israel just got Khamenei, right? For a very good reason, because that slows the enemy and creates chaos, and it enables you to take over the bad regime. Okay, so that's one thing he wants to get Sisera. The other reason he wants to get after Sisera, he doesn't want Sisera to fall in the hands of a woman. He wants to be the one killing Sisera. He wants the honor of bringing his head on a stake, as they say. Okay, but that does not happen. Oh yeah, I have that. You'll see that in next week, not this week. Today we have to have a shorter class. But so now that same woman, this brave woman, is now calling him, "Come, I have something to show you," which is like good news for him, but also disappointing news for him because he was the one who wanted to get her. And it's a non-Jewish woman who's a non-Israelite woman who's the one that's gonna get him. So that kind of like is the end of the story. And next week, we're going to be reading the song of Deborah and Barak, which is kind of like parallel to the song that the Israelites sang on the sea when they left Egypt on the Exodus. And actually, the Haftorah that we read every year on Parshat Beshalach is this chapter 5, which Judy Tobias always does so beautifully. So that's kind of like